thunderstorm is just passing over right now. I didn't think there's any better time to film a myth video involving the creation and the birth of the god of thunder himself, Zeus. And I don't know how else to introduce this video other than to emphasize my own fascination with mythology, especially in light of learning a little bit more about psychology and how, broadly speaking, the more the psychoanalysts, Freud, Adler, Jung, the more they probed deeper into the sub-personalities, the structure of the psyche in the human mind, the more they had to rely on religious language and stories and these proto-scientific, prehistoric modes of interpreting the world and phenomena. And that's, to me, it's in combination with that modern psychoanalysis, psychology, myth, can be interpreted with evolution as well. Just if you think about the untold countless millennia of struggle, whether it's with nature proper or the nature of other tribes, there must have been so much grief and suffering relative to today. They were helpless against disease, and they were exposed to the elements. They were reliant on the knowledge of basic things like how to prepare food and fire and hunt, find clean water. Some of the stories that are told in this book, which was actually a pretty nice $10 find at, I think, Barnes & Noble around here, which is one of the main brick-and-mortar retailers in the States here. Forgot where I was going with that sentence, but ancient, prehistoric, untold numbers of kings, queens, perhaps. In these stories, it's so interesting to view them as the amalgamation of the most archetypal, the most enduring, the most ideal qualities of how to act and how to lead your people. And, on the other hand, how not to act. You see very much the deceitful, beguiling, dishonest, treacherous, volatile, belligerent, lustful, vengeful, resentful, jealous. All these attributes of humans and gods overlap widely. And to me, that's so fascinating to view mythology through that lens, as not so much a historical document or a childlike attempt to explain nature and natural phenomena, but a projection of our inner chaos and order in our minds out onto the world in a story form, in an easily consumable, digestible way that tells us over millennium, maybe hundreds of thousands of years, gods were the embodiment of the characteristics that we both fear and aspire to be and become. And that can tell us a lot about ourselves, and I love that. So, without rambling anymore, let's let's dive into what might be the most profound, the greatest Greek story ever told. That is, without question, the modern classic, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Love is here to stay, and so is her family. I just found this VHS filming at my parents' house. It's so much quieter here. In itself, aside from the joke that I had to, I was compelled to pull on you guys. Oh, listen to that. Do you hear that thunder? That's the gods of storytelling, compelling me to hurry up and begin my tale. Okay. I just wanted to say that this, although it's a modern rom-com, romantic comedy, it's also, a genuine look into some of the more enduring virtues of having a large, loving family. And that, although they might be your biggest critic, they're also your biggest supporter. And that's a profound thing. It really is. So, all jokes aside, My Big Fat Greek Wedding is a timeless classic. I'm sure. Here we have Greece, yes. So here we have Italy, Sicily, Sardinia, Corsica. To the east we have, well, I won't go through it all, but Macedonian Greece, Asia Minor, which is modern day Turkey. And this is the Hellespont, which is the gateway to the Black Sea. Amazons there. And you notice on the larger map, it's, all of between Egypt, Mesopotamia, ancient Greece, earliest vestiges of Rome, Carthage, and North Africa. They're all in Israel, of course, Crete as well. They're all very close relative to the size of the Earth. So you could see how the cultures must have intermingled, or at least derived from a common ancestor. Common language being the Indo-European languages. Language tree, at least. This is the context in which, the geographical context from Italy all the way to here, northwest of Asia Minor, Turkey, right by the Hellespont, where you see Troy right there. And this is the area into which ancient peoples came in, probably either integrated or completely destroyed the original inhabitants, which, depending on how far back you go, those might be considered Neanderthals. They say history is written by the winners, but they also say reality always gets the last word. And perhaps a fusion of those nuggets of wisdom is that these myths that have been transferred down, in a way, they're kind of defined by their practicality. And in the pragmatic view of philosophy, then, that which is most useful for life, that which is most practical, most wise, is that which is truest. And that's what I see in these myths, is enduring truths that, by their very nature, benefited those societies that continued to pay respect and revere them for the truth that they contained. Because even if you interpret myths that are meant to be taken metaphorically, literally, you're still gonna respect the morality that they encompass. That is implicitly the core of their essence. So here we go. We have this whole book contains some very beautiful, I feel like that might be Odysseus. I'm not really sure, but it seems like that's Odysseus coming back. That's Argus recognizing him, and Telemachus leading him back, not recognizing him. Maybe not. Maybe that's a perfect example of how things can get misinterpreted. But yeah, this book is absolutely full of beautiful, stunning images, art pieces, historic pieces of art that really go along with all the stories. Both good and evil. So let's start with the creation of the universe. So we open up with just a composite of, looks like many of the gods, I think. There's mighty Zeus harnessing his lightning. On the other side, and there's Poseidon. We'll skip over that, but so yeah, this is just justifying the merits of reading myth, because so much of our culture has been transformed and informed by myth, whether you realize it or not. I mean, we're generations downstream of these myths, tens, hundreds even of generations downstream. These were the sources of heroic behavior and adventures long before comic books were a thing. So, Chapter 1, the beginning of all things. Mythology is the science which treats of the early traditions or myths relating to the religion of the ancients, and includes, besides a full account of the origin of their gods, their theory concerning the beginning of all things. Among all the nations scattered over the face of the earth, the Hebrews alone were instructed by God, who gave them not only a full account of the creation of the world and of all living creatures, but also a code of laws to regulate their conduct. All the questions they fain would ask were fully answered, and no room remained for conjecture. It was not so, however, with the other nations, the Greeks and Romans, for instance, lacking the definite knowledge which we obtain from the scriptures, and still anxious to know everything, were forced to construct in part their own theory. As they looked around them for some clue to serve as a guide, they could not help but observe and admire the wonders of nature. The succession of day and night, summer and winter, rain and sunshine, the fact that the tallest trees sprang from tiny seeds, and the greatest rivers from diminutive streams, and the most beautiful flowers and delicious fruits from small green buds, all seemed to them of a superior being with a capital B, who had fashioned them to serve a definite purpose. They soon came to the conclusion that a hand mighty enough to call all these wonders into life could also have created the beautiful earth whereon they dwelt. These thoughts gave rise to others. Superstitions became certainties, and soon the following myth or fable was evolved, to be handed down from generation to generation. At first, when all things lay in a great confused mass, air, earth, and sea, and the covering heavens were known, the face of nature over the world was one, and men have called it chaos, formless, rude, the mass, dead matter's weight, inert and crude, where in mixed heap of ill-compounded mold the jarring seeds of things confusedly rolled. The earth did not exist. Land, sea, and air were mixed up together, so that the earth was not solid, the sea was not fluid, nor the air transparent. No sun yet beamed from yon cerulean height, no orbing moon repaired her horns of light, no earth self-poised on liquid ether hung, no sea its world-enclasping waters flung. Earth was half air, half sea, an embryo heap, nor was earth fixed, nor fluid was deep. Dark was the void of air, no form was traced, obstructing atoms struggled through the waste, where cold and hot and moist and dry rebelled, heavy the light, and hard the soft repelled. Chaos and Nyx. Over this shapeless mass reigned a careless deity called Chaos, whose personal appearance could not be described. There was no light by which he could be seen. He shared his throne with his wife, the dark goddess of night, named Nyx or Nox, whose black robes and still blacker countenance did not tend to enliven the surrounding gloom. Erebus, Aether, and Hemera. These two divinities wearied of their power in the course of time, and called their son Erebus, or darkness, to their assistance. His first act was to dethrone and supplant Chaos, and then, thinking he would be happier with a helpmeet, he married his own mother, Nyx. Of course, with our present views, this marriage was a heinous sin, but the ancients who at first had no fixed laws, they didn't consider this union unsuitable, and recounted how Erebus and Nyx ruled over the chaotic world together, until their two beautiful children, Aether and Hemera, light and day, acting in concert, dethroned them and seized the supreme power. Most people will, of course, recognize the tradition of the origin of light and day, supplanting darkness and chaos. Creation of Gaia and Uranus. Space, illumined for the first time by their radiance, revealed itself in all its uncouthness. Ether and Hemera carefully examined the confusion. They saw its innumerable possibilities and decided to evolve from it a thing of beauty, but quite conscious of the magnitude of such an undertaking and feeling that some assistance would be desirable, they summoned Eros, Amor or Love, their own child, to their aid. By their combined efforts, Pontus, which is the sea, and Gaia, Tellus or Terra, is the earth, were created. In the beginning, the earth did not present the beautiful appearance that it does now. No trees waved their leafy branches on the hillsides. No flowers bloomed in the valleys. No grass grew on the plains. No birds flew through the air. All was silent, bare, and motionless. Eros, the first to perceive these deficiencies, seized his life-giving arrows and pierced the cold bosom of the earth. Immediately the brown surface, covered with luxuriant verdure, birds of many colors flitted through the foliage of the newborn forest trees. Animals of all kinds gamboled over the grassy plains, and swift-darting fish swam in the limpid streams. All was now life, joy, in motion. Gaia, roused from her apathy, admired all that had already been done for her embellishment, and resolving to crown and complete the work so well begun, created Uranus, or heaven. Her firstborn earth produced, of like immensity, the starry heaven, that he might shelter and compass her around on every side. It's by the 7th or 8th century BC poet Hesiod. And now here we have another painting. This looks like one of Cupid. It's called L'amour manquant by Carl van Loo. Little naked baby pointing an arrow right at us. Kind of a weird face. Its eyes look a little vacant. Maybe it's not the first time he's done this. So now we have the egg myth. This version of creation of the world, although but one of many current with the Greeks and Romans, was the one most generally adopted, but another, also very popular, stated that the first divinities, Erebus and Nyx, produced a giant egg, from which Eros, the god of love, emerged to create the earth. In the dreary, chaotical closet of Erebus old was a privy deposit. By night the primeval in the secrecy laid, a mystical egg that in silence and shade was brooded and hatched, till time came about, and love the delightful in glory flew out. That was by Aristophanes, famous ancient Greek poet. And just like there's two Genesises, plural, in the Bible, one is of God creating the earth in 7 days, and the other is of Adam and Eve in the fall, from living in the garden unconsciously to having to be kicked out after being made conscious, after eating a fruit, interestingly enough. Could have been a mushroom, could have been a toxic, vision-inducing fruit. Nonetheless, it opened our eyes. Interestingly, the woman, the female, was the first to eat the fruit. And it was the female that made the man become conscious of himself. Which I find that really fascinating because any of you males out there will be hard-pressed to deny that feeling of self-consciousness you get around an especially beautiful woman. And the urge to improve yourself and self-reflect for the better, it's a beautiful thing. So next is Mount Olympus in the river Oceanus. The earth thus created was supposed by the ancients to be a disk, and some moderns too, instead of a sphere, as science has proved. The Greeks fancied that their country occupied a central position, and that Mount Olympus, a very high mountain in the north, mind you, the mythological abode of their gods, was placed in the exact center. Their earth was divided into 2 equal parts by Pontus, the sea, equivalent to our Mediterranean and Black Seas. And all around it flowed the great river Oceanus in a steady, equable current, undisturbed by storm, from which the sea and all the rivers were supposed to derive their waters. Next, we have the Hyperboreans. The Greeks also imagined that the portion of the earth directly north of their country was inhabited by a fortunate race of men, the Hyperboreans, who dwelt in continual bliss and enjoyed a never-ending springtide. Their homes were said to be inaccessible by land or by sea. They were exempt from disease, old age, and death, and were so virtuous that the gods frequently visited them, and even condescended to share their feasts and games. A people thus favored could not fail to be happy, and many were the songs in praise of their sunny land. I come from a land in the sun-bright deep, where golden gardens grow, where the winds of the north, becalmed in sleep, their conch shells never blow. So near the track of the stars are we, that oft, on night's pale beams, the distant sounds of their harmony come to our ears like dreams. The moon, too, brings her world so nigh, that when the night seer looks to that shadowless orb in the vernal sky, he can number its hills and brooks. To the sun god all our hearts and lyres by day by night belong, and the breath we draw from his living fires we give him back in song. Now we move on to the Ethiopians in the Isles of the Blest. South of Greece, also near the great river Oceanus, dwelt another nation just as happy and virtuous as the Hyperboreans, the Ethiopians. They too often enjoyed the company of gods, who shared their innocent pleasures with great delight. And far away on the shore of this same marvelous river, according to some mythologists, were the beautiful Isle of the Blest, where mortals who had led virtuous lives, and had thus found favor in the sight of the gods, were transported without tasting death. and where they enjoyed the eternity of bliss. These islands had sun, moon, and stars of their own, and were never visited by the cold, wintry winds that swept down from the north. Here's a poem. The Isles of the Blest, they say, the Isles of the Blest are peaceful and happy by night and by day, far away in the glorious west. They need not the moon in the land of delight, they need not the pale star. The sun is bright, and by day and by night, where the souls of the blessed are. They till not the ground, they plough not the wave, they labor not, never, oh never. Not a tear do they shed, not a sigh do they heave. They are happy forever and ever. It's by Pindar. So now we have Uranus and Gaia. Chaos, Erebus, and Nyx were deprived of their power by Aether and Hemera, who did not long enjoy the possession of the scepter, for Uranus and Gaia, more powerful than their progenitors, soon forced them to depart, and began to reign in their stead. They had not dwelt long on the summit of Mount Olympus, though, before they found themselves the parents of 12 gigantic children, the Titans, whose strength was such that their father Uranus greatly feared them. To prevent their ever making use of it against him, he seized them immediately after the birth, hurled them down into a dark abyss called the Tartarus, and there chained them fast. Titans, cyclopses, and centimini. This chasm was situated far under the earth, and Uranus knew that his 6 sons, Oceanus, Zeus, Crius, Hyperion, Iapetus, and Cronus, as well as his 6 daughters, the Titanides, Ilia, Rhea, Themis, Thetis, Mnemosyne, and Phoebe, could not easily escape from its cavernous depths. The Titans did not long remain sole occupants of Tartarus, for one day the brazen doors were again thrown wide open to admit the Cyclops, Pontus, thunder, and Sterops, lightning, and Argus, sheet lightning, 3 later-born children of Uranus and Gaia, heavens and the earth, remember, who helped the Titans to make the darkness hideous with their incessant clamor for freedom. In time, their number was increased by the 3 terrible centimini, or 100-handed centimani, Cotus, Briareus, and Gaius, who were sent thither by Uranus to share their fate. Greatly dissatisfied with the treatment her children had received at their father's hands, Gaia remonstrated, but all in vain. Uranus would not grant her request to set the giants free. And whatever their muffled cries, whenever they reached his ear, he trembled for his own safety. Angry beyond all expression, Gaia swore revenge, and descended into Tartarus, where she urged the Titans to conspire against their father and attempt to wrest the scepter from his grasp. The Titans revolt. All listened attentively to the words of sedition, but none were courageous enough to carry out her plans, except Cronus, the youngest of the Titans, more familiarly known as Saturn or Time, who found confinement in the chains peculiarly galling, and who hated his father for his cruelty. Gaia finally induced him to lay violent hands upon his sire, and after releasing him from his bonds, gave him a scythe and bade him be of good cheer, in return victorious. Thus armed and admonished, Cronus set forth, came upon his father unawares, defeated him, thanks to his extraordinary weapon, and after binding him fast, took possession of the vacant throne, intending to rule the universe forever. Enraged at the insult, Uranus cursed his son, and prophesied a day that would come when he too would be supplanted by his children, and would suffer just punishment for his rebellion. Kronos and Rhea. Cronus paid no heed to his father's imprecations, but calmly proceeded to release the Titans, his brothers and sisters, who in their joy and gratitude to escape the dismal realm of Tartarus, expressed their willingness to be ruled by him. Their satisfaction was complete, however, when he chose his own sister, Rhea, Sibyl or Ops, in other words, for his consort, and assigned to each of the others some portion of the world to govern at will. To Oceanus and Thetys, for example, he gave charge of the ocean and all the rivers upon the earth, while to Hyperion and Phoebe he entrusted the direction of the sun and the moon, which the ancients supposed were daily driven across the sky in a brilliant golden chariot. Peace and security now reigned on and around Mount Olympos, and Cronus, with great satisfaction, congratulated himself, reigned, on the result of his enterprise. One fine morning, however, his equanimity was disturbed by the announcement that a son was born to him. The memory of his father's curse then suddenly returned in his mind. Anxious to avert so great a calamity as the loss of his power, he hastened to his wife, determined to devour the child, and thus prevent him from causing further annoyance. Wholly unsuspicious, Rhea heard him inquire for his son. Gladly she placed him in his extended arms, but imagine her surprise and horror when she beheld her husband swallow the babe. We're going to end here with the birth of Jupiter. Time passed, and another child was born, but only to meet with the same cruel fate. One infant after another disappeared down the capacious throat of the voracious Cronus, a personification of time who creates only to destroy. In vain the bereaved mother besought the life of one little one. The selfish, hard-hearted father would not relent. As her prayers seemed unavailing, Rhea finally resolved to obtain by stratagem the boon her husband denied, boon being gift. And as soon as her youngest son, Jupiter, Jove, or Zeus, was born, she concealed him. Cronus, unaware of his birth, soon made his appearance, determined to dispose of him in the usual summary manner. For some time Rhea pleaded with him, but at last pretended to yield to his commands. Hastily wrapping a large stone in swaddling cloths, she handed it to Cronus, simulating intense grief. Cronus was evidently not of a very inquiring mind, for he swallowed the whole without investigating the real contents of the shapeless bundle. And I'm gonna leave you guys with a cliffhanger right there. And we'll pick up the tale of Zeus, or Jupiter, or Jove, in depth next time. Thanks for watching, guys. And I can't thank you enough for all the support. It's more inspiring than I think many of you might realize. So, I just want to say thank you. It's encouraging. It's uplifting. It's an honor. It's fun. I'm truly blessed that I can delve into interesting topics, and you guys are along for the ride. So, until next time, sleep well, and just remember that there's a lot of wisdom out there in history, in life, in friendship and love. Let's take our time to learn as much as we can while we can. Everything else is for the birds.